Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Friday Lunchtime Live. I know obviously we didn't complete a live last week, but for those of you that attended the masterclass, you will fully understand why. We did, was it 12 or 14
hours,
lives in one day? So yeah, Friday was off the cards, but we are back this week and we're just going to recap what happened at the masterclass. So it was a really great day for education. We had the UK, the US, and Australia all joining together to deliver a really wide variety of heat printing education. We had loads of you joining us live, which was amazing. We had quite a lot of people phone in to say they're watching things back on demand to help further their business, which is great. Yeah, how did you find the event?
I thought it was brilliant. It was really great to see so many people, especially from the UK, that stayed the whole time, all the way through to 2 o'clock in the morning. Really appreciated you joining us for that, taking the time to invest in your education and your growth as a heat printer and as a business. Very encouraging to see everyone's humble enough to still be learning every single day. So that was really great. And plus the talks were fantastic.
They were good
really,
sessions,
really great.
Yeah.
A special mention to all the guest speakers that came in and really knocked it out of the park. They provided some amazing value to the day.
Yeah. So we're just going to recap now. Obviously, the sessions are available for those of you that did sign up for the event. Whether you attended or not, you'll be able to log back in and watch them all on demand.
Yep.
We have had a few questions about people that didn't sign up for the masterclass and now want to watch the sessions. Unfortunately, you can't sign up anymore, and that's why we encouraged everyone beforehand to sign up, even if you couldn't attend. So we're just going to give you all a little bit of a sneak preview into 3 of the sessions today. So we're going to talk about the evolution of heat transfers, which was yourself and Dave's session. We're then going to cover a little bit from Heat Press Basics, which was the session that I did with Kelly Walters from STAHLS in the US. And then we've got Heat Press Troubleshooting, which was Josh Ellsworth, which was a really, really valuable one all the sessions were valuable, but this one in particular, I think, helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we've got around 10 to 15 minutes of each of those 3 talks to play you today. So we'll get started with heat transfer troubleshooting.
Behind it. So it's opaque on light or dark garments, and it's a very nice hand feel as well. So that's one thing that kind of sets it apart from, say, print methods like sublimation, where you see printed on a lot of that performance wear, but you need a light colored garment. You're not able to print white behind it, whereas with Ultra Color Max and direct to film transfers, you absolutely are. Now with direct to film transfers, super, super low minimum quantities because they are digitally produced. It does with the screen printed transfers, just like regular screen printing, we do have to set up the screens, inks, emulsion, so you don't have to, right? But of course, with that comes a minimum quantity, otherwise the costs skyrocket. So it's essentially with the setup cost the same price, and setup's all built in. There's no nickel and diming or hidden pricing. What you see is what you'll get. But when you start to scale up in quantity, those are good. But here, any quantity, they are the exact same quality of what you'll get. They're great for sampling. Maybe you're taking photos for a photo shoot or anything else like that. So they're really, really great. They have that white backer, and they're great. As you saw that example that we had gradients, fades. If you want to print photos, you absolutely can. We see a lot of gradients in corporate logos these days. Hello, Instagram, right? So if you want to recreate something like that, these transfers are definitely the go-to. Now we're going to talk about hybrid transfers that mix the best of both worlds here in a minute. But these also come on a clear carrier. So we have our clear carrier, so we could see through it, as opposed to the screen printing where we are on an opaque white carrier, right? So there is a difference in these 2 transfer types that when you say you're placing this on the shirt, I want to place it on my shirt right here, I could see exactly where I'm going to be placing it, which makes it super, super easy to be able to work with these transfers, especially if you're running a production shop and you're bringing employees on, that you're able to really, really get them up to speed and get them printing high quality in no time flat. Of course, low temperature application, which we have the press going down to right now, 290 degrees, which is absolutely phenomenal for printing on any of those synthetic fibers. And then there is no clear outline. It looks like a nice, crisp, sharp edge, and that's really where it's came from in the evolution. And that's what I think the industry was really waiting for, was that there was no outline. There's no need to print and cut like we used to be doing with our CAD cut, the printable vinyl with a print and cut machine. You could get all of the same benefits here, but now it's all in line, a little bit lower price, and a lot more versatility in this. I see a question up there, and I'm going to throw this one over to Andy. What are the temperatures for application for Ultracolor Max in Celsius?
So Ultracolor Max is 145 degrees Celsius. And the 1 to 5 color, which would be the equivalent to the Goof Proof if the Plasticell products, is 160 in the UK. But if you get stuck, Caroline, just head to custom.stahls.co.uk and all of the instructions are there on every single product page.
Yes, making it easy. I know that the application instructions are able to be found anywhere. So you don't have to memorize all this stuff like I have. I've actually seen a lot of shops who kind of make the chart of what products they're producing, what transfer types they're using, and put them on a chart on the wall. Or if you had that great Fusion IQ press that we saw in the last demo, you could actually program all of the application settings in there as well for the specific products that you're using, making up custom settings or using the presets that are already built in. So it's really powerful to be able to save those settings so you don't have to remember them all the time. You could always check when you are ordering and or when your transfers arrive. They'll have a sheet in there from Transfer Express. We do include all of the application instructions, so there is no guessing on the recipe. You could follow a recipe for the application setting for the fabric that you are printing on with that specific print method. But direct to film is so versatile that I have a whole bunch of samples that I want to show you exactly how versatile it is, right? So it's a great product to be able to apply to a ton of different substrates here. So I just have a few. Here is a Anorak dry duck jacket with an Ultracolor Max embellishment on here. Now this feels exactly like the garment. This one here, I believe, is a 100% polyester shell. We are going to see if I could find it just to confirm for you. But I believe this is a 100% polyester shell. Let's see. Yep, 100% polyester. So on the outside here, we do have the ability to print on this. And as you can see, there's no scorch marks. There's no damaging to the garment. And this jacket with this really, really cool interior print, we got this one from S&S Activewear. With this really, really high-end jacket, you don't want to be ruining these, because as apparel decorators, any spent garments or wasted garments misprinted are profit out of your pocket. So we want you to be able to decorate confidently. And that's really where direct to film makes it so versatile to print on a variety of styles. And we'll get into kind of the scenarios where you might switch over to, say, a hybrid transfer a little bit once we get through all of our transfer types. Now here, a 60-40, so a 60% cotton, 40% polyester for this nice color blocked hoodie. When we're talking about trends and styles, super, super in style here. And this is just printed on the face of this hoodie. No scorching, no scorch marks, and an absolute phenomenal durable application. Andy, how you said that that there was a whole bunch of, you guys did some wash testing on Ultracolor Max and got it up to some impressive numbers too, didn't you?
It's unbelievable and this goes true for all of the transfer products that we're going to cover today, that we're talking, I know the industry standard is off, we talk about 50 plus washes, but we did some the other day and they got to 80, 100 and they were still looking great. And Jenna mentioned earlier on one of the other calls that she's seen 250 washes out of Ultracolor Max, which is just ridiculous almost, to be honest. But yeah, the wash quality of this is just out of this world. It really is.
That's what a lot of people demand. I would say even at like those, once you get past 50, I've found that like my regular t-shirts, right? Like a cotton or polyester t-shirt, like what I'm wearing in this polo, when I get to like 50 washes, 60 washes, they kind of start falling apart. So the goal is for the print to outlast the garment, right? Yeah. And it seems that Ultracolor Max is absolutely smashing that. My last example that I'll hold up here of Ultracolor Max is a football jersey, American football jersey, but these will print on any 100% polyester. So this is actually even a mesh. You could kind of see it in the light that this is a mesh jersey, and just look how absolutely phenomenal that print looks on it, right? It's not stuck to the inside or anything, right? It looks absolutely phenomenal on this jersey. So this is something that you could absolutely use for such a wide variety of uses. Now, of course, if you are doing large quantities of full color artwork, or here's just a simple 2-color artwork, so we can even screen print this at a larger quantity, we could move on over to our hybrid transfers. Now, the hybrid transfers are going to marry the best of both worlds. It is a digital print with a screen printed adhesive backing, right? So it's absolutely super versatile for getting those full color images while also getting high quantity discounts. So you get those quantity breaks just like screen printing, right? So this is a really great product for, say, a lot of the artwork that we were doing. If it's a full color print or has many colors in the print and you're doing a high quantity, because you're not charged, the price doesn't go up with more colors in your design with that digital print. Again, any color, but back to a minimum quantity. So that differs from the direct to film. These are great with those quantity breaks. Applies to cotton, poly blends, spandex, or sublimated. I saw a question pop up that asked what was the difference between some ultra color products. If we could throw that one back up there, I would love to answer that one as we are talking here about hybrid transfers, because Ultra Color Max is our direct to film option. But here in the United States, we have Ultra Color Pro and Ultra Color Soft, Ultra Color Stretch, and then even a dye blocking option if you're printing on any sublimated garments or if you need that. So this question is, what's the difference between Ultra Color Max and Ultra Color Pro? Ultra Color Max is available as a single piece or many pieces. It's up to you, but there's a fixed price here from Transfer Express and STAHLS. It is 6 cents a square inch. Whereas with Ultra Color Pro, you are ordering by the sheet. Ultra Color Pro here, we're talking about these hybrid transfers, right? Both apply to cotton, polyester, cotton poly blends, and with the Ultra Color Stretch option, you are able to print on spandex and even woven nylon. So you get a little bit more fabrics with that nylon that you're able to do with the option of Ultra Color Stretch. But they are both hot peels. They both apply at 290 degrees for 15 seconds. Now here with our hybrid transfers, let me grab one right here because this is our Ultra Color Pro. With our hybrid transfers, they come on a gang sheet. So you can't buy individual images, but you could buy them here on a gang sheet. And with this print, we have our full color print. It feels very, very similar to that direct to film print, but you will see even a slight clear outline around the image. I don't even know if you could see it on this example because it is super, it's super small, right? It is just barely there, but that's the adhesive to ensure that all of these nice, beautiful digital inks adhere to the shirt. But this was the evolution before we got to direct to film to be able to consistently get those great applications without the clear outline. So yeah, you can't even see this one here. But if you get up real close, it's just faintly on the edge. And usually with like a second press, cover it with a cover sheet and press it again, and that outline is completely gone. But these are going to be much more cost effective than direct to film, that Ultra Color Max, at higher quantities. So you have a lot of the same benefits, a very, very similar application. However, if you're doing higher quantities, it's going to cost less to do the Pro than it's going to cost to do Max. Of course, because they're priced per square inch, it does vary on what you're doing. We're going to show a chart here in just a little bit and a download that you're going to be able to take home with you to use as a reference when we're talking about the cost of transfers here. So there is that thin clear outline on these hybrid transfers, but they kind of marry the best of both worlds in there. Seems other producers of DTF all heat approximately 8 seconds and then cover and print another 7 seconds, claiming this helps set the print. Not sure the difference, but is there any reason to cover and add another quick hit? So a lot of those transfers out on the market are cold peel transfers. And you'll see that with cold peel transfers where when you peel it, the edges necessarily don't look the best. So then they'll have to cover it with a second step and repress. Because we worked very, very hard before bringing it to market with our Ultra Color Max transfers, we figured out a solution where we're able to hit it once, peel hot, which is super time saving, right? So you're able to do it in one step application, no need to cover and repress. They are sealed into the fibers of the garment with that one press. No need for a cover sheet, no need for anything else. No need to wait for it to cool down or rub another shirt on it to help cool it down back to room temperature. No, a hot peel is super simple, super effective, and super efficient when you are printing with direct-to-film prints. So it is a little bit longer dwell time, that's that 12 to 15 seconds for it to fuse onto the garment, but there is no second step. So we see some people with cold peel transfers setting them all aside, so printing them all and then going back and peeling them and then doing an extra step. But that is a lot, especially when you need to wait for it to cool down back to room temperature. You're removing the garment from the press. So effectively, you're doing twice the work for all of those. So that is something that we are very proud. And one of the features that I personally love the best about Ultra Color Max direct-to-film transfers. And then the hand feel too. I absolutely love how soft they are on the garment itself. It is not a crunchy print, especially when you have any open areas in the print, very similar to like our Global Masterclass logo that we have right here, that you have the fabric being able to move through. I always tell decorators all the time that whenever you have a large ink coverage area, and I've been designing for t-shirts for a long time, that if you have full solid ink coverage with any print method other than, say, if you're doing like discharge soft hand screen printing or sublimation, that you're going to feel that print. So breaking up areas with any print method to allow that fabric to breathe just makes for a more comfortable print. And that's one of the when you find a designer who knows how to design for t-shirts with those open areas, because if you're screen printing with regular plastisol ink or even direct to garment in some cases, it could be a very heavy print that's sitting on that garment, but not the case with Ultra Color Max here, or even really Ultra Color Pro. Love these two products.
Okay, so that was the video with Dave and Andy. How did you find that session?
That was really interesting. Dave is one of the leading educators in the whole world really when it comes to transfer printing. There's so much that he can break down, but I think it's always good to get back to the basics of heat transfer, what to use when, and the importance of it. Because there's always a good option for every solution, and Dave's one of the best at making it simple for everyone. So really great work by him. I should also notice that anyone has further questions about the videos that they're seeing today, just drop a question, and in between the clips we'll jump back in and I'll answer any of them for you. Get any problem solved, even if it's not related to the masterclass. We're always happy to answer your questions for you.
Definitely. Okay, so the next one we're going to play is the heat press basics, and that was myself and Kelly Walters. I found this one really interesting because even though a lot of the stuff that we covered at the masterclass was about sort of leveling up your business and how to make it more efficient and profitable, I think anyone at any level can benefit from a heat press basics, even if it's just from a best practice point of view. So really enjoyed doing this one. So I hope you guys do as well. Now, one of the main reasons that I love working with Hotronics, I just lent on the slide, apologies everyone. One of the main reasons I love working with Hotronics presses is because there are so many things that they give you that other presses don't, that allow you to print not only more garments in a wider variety, but also it gives you so much more in terms of efficiency. Oh, right, thank you, sorry. In terms of efficiency and, just things you can swap out like the platens, and we'll cover all of that. So we're going to go over all of the innovative features that Hotronics presses offer you, starting with the time, temperature and pressure. Now, as Kelly mentioned, this is the holy trinity of heat printing. Those of you that have been printing for a while will, or should, if you don't, there's a slight problem, and I'm glad you're here. About time, temperature and pressure, the three main things you need to be able to heat press a garment or an accessory correctly. So when it comes to knowing exactly what these are and controlling these numbers, Hotronics presses give it all to you. So whether it's accurate temperature, so you can set the temperature, and the Hotronics heating element that Kelly was talking about sets the entire platen within the degree. So there's no fear that a certain part of the platen will be slightly cooler than the other and the transfer might not adhere properly all over the platen. And it is just 100% consistent. So you can be confident that when you pull that platen down, you're getting that consistent heat across the entire platen, and it's the right temperature to unlock the adhesive on the back of whatever decoration method you're using. And then we go on to the timers. So presses like the auto open, for example, have the dual timers, which allow for your pre-press and your main press. And we're going to cover pre-pressing in another slide shortly. But being able to accurately measure the time that you're printing for really allows you to just make the most of your heat transfer. So we've seen it where people are using handheld presses and they're sort of counting in their head up to 10 or 12 or whatever the timer may be, and you're not entirely sure that that's the accurate number that you should be holding it down. It's not consistent throughout every single press that you do. So that's why the timers are great. And like you say, if it auto opens, that's even better. And then we have pressure. Do you want to take pressure, Kelly? I'm very aware that I've been rabbiting through this.
No, you're doing great. I think the biggest thing about pressure is, if you are used to working with STAHLS products, it's the TTP, it's the time, temperature, pressure right there as the main title on, this particular page. And that as a whole is your recipe. So I always break it down in cake form. If you're baking a cake, you're not going to go willy-nilly on the amount of eggs or oil or amount of water. Everything's going to have its particular reason for why you're using it. So when it comes to pressure, there are many, many people in our industry that will overuse pressure. And when you're doing that, you have to look at it not from just a transfer and thinking that you're really fusing, which I love that's the word that Molly uses. I'm going to start saying fusing more and more.
What do you say?
Heat applying?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know. I never really paid attention to it until I'm like fusing. I love it. So like when you are really, really fusing that down and you're over pressuring, you're killing the fibers of, that material. You're killing those delicate fibers like rayon, viscose. You don't want to have too much to where you are seeing that scorching. The other side of that is there is something to be said about over pressure and having adhesive kind of like ooze out on the side. And then you'll almost have this like gloss effect on your transfer. So just because you think it's better, it's making it, it's really cooking it, are you going to over bake a cake? No, you're going to keep it to where it's nice and tasty. You're not going to fry it out. So just think about that. As you can see in that upper right hand for our clams and our fusion, as well as the 360, which you guys can't see right now, this is where we're adjusting the pressure. So it is centralized over the heating element versus towards the back or towards the front, really pushing the center of the heating element down versus, outside of where it needs to be.
Another thing to mention on overpressuring, Kelly, as well, is if you do overpressure your press, even by like 2 to 3 points on a Hotronics, over time, it might not happen straight away, but over time, you'll damage your heat press as well. Like if you're constantly overpressuring it, it might start to buckle in the middle and then you're unnecessarily damaging your press when you don't need to, right? Which kind of leads into Caroline's message. How do you know if you have too much pressure? One of the main things that I love about the Hotronics machines is that from the auto open upwards, you get the pressure readout. So it physically tells you what pressure number that you are fusing at. And if you need to adjust it, whether that be because you've changed the bottom platen or because you're fusing a thicker garment, anything like that, you can change it. And also, let me know your thoughts on this, Kelly, but you can feel it, can't you? Like presses shouldn't be difficult to use. If it's overpressured, it's hard to close it. Like it shouldn't feel that difficult.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that's a little tricky is there's not, the end all be all in terms of, this is too much pressure, because my strength is going to be different than Molly's, which is going to be different than Andy's, which is going to be different than Dave's. So if I am really struggling to get a press down, it might be completely different for, Dave, who's going to be using the same press, and it's just going to be, a little bit feel, right? But I think at the end of the day, if you are noticing that you're getting hard press lines, not scorching, but lines, there's something to definitely take into consideration, because this is a giant iron. So the more pressure you have, the more you're going to get those crisp, platen lines. Just something to think about.
Yeah, and if you're having, on all of the presses, this is true, but especially with the Max, if it doesn't have the pressure readout, you should be able to pull the press down with 2 fingers and have it feel relatively easy to close. And that's kind of how you know you're at a medium pressure with all of the presses, whether or not you have a pressure readout. We have a question from Mary who wants to know, is there different pressures for different materials?
Yes.
I'm sure Kelly has a lot more of an opinion on this than I do, because you do a lot more testing. But my personal opinion would be majority of the things that we fuse, whether it be transfers or vinyl, tend to go down at medium pressure unless you're fusing onto more of a sensitive garment. So if you're fusing onto, for example, polyester or something with a fleece or Sherpa even, which is my new favorite thing. I need to try that after seeing Jenna's video. That's when I would suggest lightening the pressure ever so slightly, especially if you've got the underheat to help that, which is something we can go into in more detail later. But that would probably be, my response. What are your thoughts, Kelly?
Exactly. Most is going to be a medium pressure. And for those of you that are like, what is that? What does that mean? What does that mean on a Hottronics press? That center graphic on this slide that says 320, there's a 5 there, and 4, 5, and 6 is going to read at a medium pressure. 1, 2, 3 is light. 7, 8, 9 is going to be heavy. So if you're using Ultra Weed, Ultra Color Max, a sublimated twill, we could go down the line, right? That's all going to be in a medium pressure. But when you start using those dimensional products like soft foam, that needs to be at a light pressure so you're not crushing that dimension. So it is important to pay attention to the pressure readout, just so you aren't over applying or possibly changing the characteristic of the material.
Amazing. Anything else to add on this slide, or should we move on?
No, I think we're great.
Cool. Okay, pre-pressing this is one of my favorite tips that I'm going to give everyone. And when we talk about pre-pressing, essentially what this means is hitting your garment or accessory for anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds before you apply any form of decoration. So if that's just a transfer on a t-shirt, you want to make sure that you're pressing the t-shirt for a short amount of time to remove any creases that might be in the t-shirt. So you want to make sure it's a completely flat surface before your decoration goes on, because you don't want to fuse it over a crease. If your garments have been stored by your supplier, chances are they might have been outside or in a damp environment. So the pre-press just allows you to remove any of that moisture, so that again the transfer or the vinyl, whatever it is you're using, has the perfect base to go onto, basically. And one of the key tips I tend to give people is always have a test. I have a couple of old ones here, either like a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, whatever it is you're fusing onto, just like a spare or an old one lying around, so that you can physically test the pressure of your heat press before you put your actual customer's garment under there, because you don't want it to be on like an overpressure and then you accidentally scorch the garment and then you're one garment down. If you can pre-press it beforehand and just test it, then that helps a lot. But there are lots of different ways that you can achieve accurate pressure. Kelly, do you want to talk a bit more about the accessories that we discussed on this?
Yeah, so, and I know that in our panel Q&A discussion, like cover sheets, right? Like that was one of the topics. And I was actually looking for a flexible application pad here, but I'm not seeing one. However, I do have, do you guys have one? I've got craft paper.
It's under the Fusion, the Great Flex pad. Yeah, we have, I can show you, we've got one here.
So when you are adjusting your cover sheet, whether it is the flexible application pad like Molly has, or craft paper, craft sheet, there's a couple of different types out there. I mean, everybody kind of has their own little name. But if I'm using a craft paper and then switch to a flexible application pad, that's going to add some thickness right above the garment. So when that heating element comes down, we need to make sure that that doesn't completely adjust the pressure. It may take us from a 4 to a 5, but we want to make sure we don't go from, say, something like a 5 to a 7. And now we're in that high pressure and we don't need to be. In terms of threadability, so another great question. You guys have been awesome about asking questions in each class that kind of tie into the next class or something that was talked about earlier. And this garment was mentioned previously in our global trends class, because we've got quilted, we've got seams, we've got stitching, we've got Sherpa, and then we also have these buttons. So how in the world are we going to, press this on a 16 by 20? Well, right there in that picture there's pillows, right? So what does a pillow do? It's wrapped in Teflon, And it's like this. So those buttons would go into the pillow, elevating the area around it. So the heating element is touching the area that it needs to, not the embellishments that could potentially melt or damage your heating element. So there's different sizes. It's really one of those things that pillows can work with a variety of things. It's not like you have to have a 4x6. It's not like you have to have a leg and sleeve. These have so much versatility for a variety of accessories that if you don't think you're ever going to use a 16x20 pillow, then just roll with an 11x15. And the cool thing about Hottronics is we have interchangeable platens, and we have them with a latch that makes it super, super easy. I'm on a stool, so bear with me as I adjust. So when our platen rolls out right here, this pin is what goes in. So I don't have to use screws. I don't have to get tools out to make a quick adjustment that I need from project to project, or even from garment to garment. So if I wanted to go from that tag along to a 4x4, I can do it within seconds. And all of these allow for you to elevate that surface area that you need to make sure is getting accurate pressure.
Yeah, as and when you do that as well, it's important to note that you do check your pressure again before fusing, because when you change the surface area of the platen that's underneath the heat plate, your pressure will change as well. So you just want to make sure that you're testing that before you put the actual garment and transfer underneath. Before we jump into the question, I'm just going to pop a couple of polls into the chat. One of them is, do you own a heat press, and how many do you own in your business? And then the other one is, do you pre-press? So we're keen to know how many of you have already got the very good breast practice habit of pre-pressing, and how many of you it's the first time you've heard it today? Should we move on to the next slide? Oh, we have a question. Kelly, do you want to take this one because you've got the craft paper?
Yeah, so it says, what's the difference, Kathy, my girl, what's the difference in brown craft paper that STAHLS sells and the white paper that comes with ultracolor transfers? Are they the same, or are they different transfers? So they're different types of paper. Whether you are like, most of the time it's something that you can feel in terms of consistency. I don't have I don't know the chemical makeup of what makes them like truly different, except for the thin, like it's thinner. And then if you look at this one, this kind of has like a little like smooth coating feel on it, but without getting like really deep. Later on, Kathy, I'll make sure that when we have our panel that we'll see if Dave Connor can talk to that just a little bit more.
Cool. And we have another question, which is it safe to use something like parchment paper on top to prevent the design from sticking to the heat press? I mean, parchment paper is pretty much very similar to what you call craft paper and what we call release paper, right? So I don't see why not. I mean, release paper is not particularly expensive to buy anyway. Like I think it's around like £5 or £6 ish for like a pack of 50 A3. So, and you will use one piece over and over again. So it's really not an expensive thing to add to your business. But I'm sure you could make do with whatever you sort of have at home as well if you needed to, and if you ran out and you needed to fill a gap.
Absolutely. So parchment paper, craft paper, there is a reusable cover sheet, which really feels like Teflon, which is almost what is wrapped up in these pillows. So like you could wipe this clean. So it really just comes down to, what do you prefer to work with? Do you want to work with the craft paper? Do you want to work with a Teflon sheet? Do you prefer to use, parchment paper? There's many, many options.
Okay, so that was session number 2, heat press basics. I personally really enjoyed delivering that one with Kelly. Like I said, I think everyone can benefit from heat press basics, no matter what level you're at, whether you are just starting out with your first press or whether you've got 6 dual air fusions lined up in a row. There's always something that you can learn or improve on, or whether it's from an efficiency or a pricing point of view. How did you find it?
I think it's great. It's always good to take a step back and think about the basics. Even if you've been heat printing for decades, sometimes there's things you forget or you take for granted, or bad habits you might have picked up, which is okay because you can correct them now. But it's always good to take a step back and think, what are the most important things when operating the press, be like, actually, you know what, I haven't been doing that enough. And that I need to go back to basics and make sure I'm doing it right every time.
Yeah, we talk about it quite a lot, but making sure you're always looking at your process, like you say, just because that's the way you've always done it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do it. So always making sure you're reviewing and making sure you're doing everything as best as possible. And on that topic, next up we have Josh, who is going to be talking all about heat transfer troubleshooting.
Problems with heat applied graphics, really this problem headlines the list, is that after you've applied the graphic to your shirt, either it's not applying correctly, and so we're actually having issues at the point of application with adhesion, or even worse than that, we've applied a graphic, we've sent that out our door, and then we have problems with it peeling or coming off, right? And this is a sign that something has gone wrong in the heat application. And so when we consider what can go wrong with application when something is either A, not applying at all correctly, or peeling correctly, I want to make a couple assumptions first. Number one is we need to be dealing with a high quality heat transfer. Certainly there are heat transfer choices on the market that can have application issues. If you find yourself in a transfer brand that's having consistent application issues, odds are it's time to shop for a new transfer, especially if you're having success on that heat press with other brands. But the number one reason we see transfers not applying is really the build of the heat press itself. And some of the transfer technologies that you've seen here today and that you'll see in this demo, the application is kind of a tight window. So it's not something where we want a 30-degree fluctuation on our press to up or down. We call out the specific time, temperature, and pressure, the trinity of heat printing, to get an accurate quality result. But we're counting that heat press is delivering the result. And so what you see drawn within the Hotronics press is the micro wound heater that you get in every Hotronics heat press that you invest in. And so this micro wound heater guarantees that there is even heat distribution throughout the press. And so not only is it a micro wound heater guaranteeing no cold spots on the platen, which can be an issue with some of the cheaper build presses, but it's also a thick heater for heat retention. And so what I like to say is if you're seeing peeling issues on your very first transfer out of the box for a day, a couple things that I'm going to recommend. Number one is make it a habit. Every time you walk up to your heat press to start pressing for the day after it's started up, you want to just preheat that lower platen. Okay. And that's a best tip on any heat press. Just go ahead and lock your heat press down, hold it against the lower platen, or lock it down for 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and just get that lower platen warmed for the day for your first shirt receiving the application. Because what happens is after you press a dozen shirts, of course, once you get to shirt number 2, 3, 4, 5, you got warmth coming from underneath. And so a lot of these applications are assuming we're not loading onto a cold platen. And I've been into some cold climates or some cold shops where this lower platen can be quite cold, especially when we're changing platens and moving from, say, a 16 by 20 platen to another style that's maybe been in storage. Loading on a cold platen is an issue. So always start by preheating that lower platen before your first application, and that will help with some of your not applying or not peeling correct issues. Now, where it becomes more of an issue is really where we have issues when we're into like item number 30 or item number 40 or item number 50 on the job. And if you're noticing progressively worse release on your transfers as you get into applications that are further down on the quantity list, what happens is your heater is probably not keeping up with how fast you're pressing. And so we have heat retention issues. And so heat retention issues, unfortunately, on some machines, it doesn't trigger quick enough on the control board. And so we could literally be on shirt number 30 and our heat press is saying it's at 300 degrees, but we've pressed 30 fleece garments that's really just absorbing the heat. And the heat press build isn't quality enough to be able to trigger that heater to reheat as quick as possible. It's losing so much heat. And if you've seen my video where I actually cut apart the heat press, some of the heat retention issues come to machines that are just built with too thin of a heater. If you were to cut apart this Hotronics press and compare it to, say, some other heat presses on the market, you'd find that in this press, you have about a 1/2 inch thick heater, where that heating element that we're illustrating and illuminating in the photo is cast in. And that's going to mean that chunk of heater is going to maintain heat even on many thousand-piece jobs. Also, this machine is built where the communication is through a probe in the digital display. So you can trust what it says on the digital display is what it is on the machine within 3 to 5 degrees accuracy. On some other machines, we see thin 1/8-inch heaters, and that's why it might be a lighter weight machine, might be a lower cost machine. That heater just loses heat, and it's not built to retain heat. And so you want to be careful on those jobs. Now, if you don't have the money right now to invest in a Hotronics, you probably just want to consider that as you're doing larger jobs. Give that heat press time in between applications to make sure it's retaining heat, and have yourself a tool to check the temperature. Now, I know a lot of people like the temperature guns. That is one way to check the temperatures. Those aren't always 100% accurate because it can vary based on the angle that you're shooting the heater at. And so we actually recommend temperature strips to be able to check that temperature. It's a cheap accessory that you can get from your Hotronics supplier. You can lock down the heat press, and those strips will light up when you lock them down on all parts of the platen. And so you can be consistent and understand that you're getting even heat across the platen because we want to make sure that machine's in calibration. It's not uncommon for any machine, regardless of the build quality over time, to come out of calibration, especially if it's under heavy use, or maybe if you're moving it a lot, if you're traveling with the machine. And so make sure you know the steps to recalibrate your machine, and occasionally check to make sure what the control board says is what it's actually reaching on the heater. And so those are some of my top tips for, I'd say, the number one issue in heat application is that, you know, if that transfer is not peeling, it's not applying. We've done the work to be able to know we have a quality transfer. Odds are it's something in the heat press or something in our technique. And I'm going to kind of get to the next potential thing to go through with a transfer not applying, assuming our temperature is correct. We have a good understanding of time. That's probably correct. That's very easy to measure and accurate. But the next big issue, and where we see most heat applications fail, is because of pressure. And certainly, if you guys have questions or challenges you're facing, we would encourage you to just go ahead and log those in the chat, and we'll make sure that Andy will interrupt me and we'll get towards the questions as they come in. Now, pressure, time, temperature, and pressure. Again, temperature, we're going to confirm that our machine is in calibration. We're going to confirm that it's a thick enough heater, a quality build to retain the heat. You're going to get that on any Hotronics machine, but pressure can fail on any machine. And there is really the number one issue pressure fails is because of operator error. Okay. And so let's rule out a machine issue first on pressure before we get to the technique and potential operator error. So number one, I mentioned this earlier, we want to make sure I'm not going to touch it because it's extremely hot right now. It's 300 degrees, but we want to make sure our top heater is completely flat. And one way to check that is take the straight edge of a ruler, hold it from corner to corner on your heat press, and see if you can find a gap and see air anywhere in between that ruler. We want it to be completely flat because any warping of the heater or potentially machines that don't come with a flat heater in the first place are going to cause issues in application. We're going to have slight areas of pressure where it's not achieving pressure. Now, the natural instinct is to crank up that pressure and lock it down and give it more pressure and more pressure. And while that may solve the issue, because it'll kind of, with this lower pad that you see on this machine or the one on the PowerPoint screen, it'll kind of be enough to kind of squish and even out the pressure. What happens is, as we want to get into different types of products, we may end up damaging that product because we're over applying a pressure to accommodate for an uneven heater or some other issue with our heat press investment. So the heat press absolutely does make a difference. We want to make sure we have an even heater. And then we really want to make sure we're loading our products accurately. Okay, so I'm going to ask to go full screen for this demonstration, and I'm going to demonstrate, some of the ways to load a product and some of the things you want to watch out for. And so when we're loading a product, the t-shirt's pretty easy. And if you want to use your press along kit, if you purchase that, I'm going to use that to demonstrate. And the first application that I'm going to complete is the t-shirt application. It's probably the easiest, and there is a large direct to film transfer in your press along kit called Ultra Color Max that I'm going to use for the demo. And so when I'm loading shirts onto the press, I know a lot of people just lay the shirt on, right? That's okay. Sometimes it's slightly faster, but the more accurate, consistent way, and to make sure you're placing at the widest opening of the press, is actually to split your shirt and do something we call thread it on. And so splitting your shirt, find the opening, we're going to split it and we're going to thread it onto the press. Now you'll notice on my press, I have this quick slip protector, which is like an ironing board cover that goes over the lower platen. That's going to make sure it's really easy to split that cotton fabric or that poly fabric loaded on. It's not going to snag, going to be quick and easy. I'm really not going to be really reaching too far back on the machine. Now here's the key. When you load your product on, in order to get even pressure, look, I already had wrinkles back there. I need to make sure the item is nice and flat. So I want to make sure I'm loading from a flat position. I pull it all the way down to the seam structure of the top shoulder. And then basically I grab both corners and I'm just going to retract the collar back until it falls off of the edge. And if you're having issues with your transfers not applying, it could be, or peeling, it could be because you have uneven pressure. And the biggest area of uneven pressure is when you're pressing somewhere close to a seam, a collar, a zipper, a button, some raised obstruction on the garment. Now, t-shirts don't have a lot of raised obstruction. It's probably the easiest item in the market to print, which is why I wanted to start there. But it's still critical. Try to get these seams off of your platen, get the collar off of the platen, because that's going to give me accuracy when I'm applying. Even when I'm applying a t-shirt, I do want to start by adjusting my pressure. Here it's an over center pressure adjustment. I'm going to start with a preheat just to remove that moisture and wrinkles from the shirt. And if you're having issues with the transfer not applying, it could be because there's a lot of moisture in your shirt as well. So step is load your shirt, make sure the surface is completely flat, free of all seams, buckles, zippers. Conduct not only a preheat before we load our shirt to start the day, but a preheat on each individual shirt, especially if it contains any natural fabrics like cotton. Cotton tends to retain moisture. That's why you'll notice your peeling issues on a lot of thicker cottons and fleece and heavier weight products. Okay, polyester usually doesn't require preheat. It releases very nice, but your natural fabrics, you always want to preheat. So with a preheat complete, then I'll be able to grab my transfer of choice. In this case, we have the Global Masterclass design that we're pulling out of the press along kit. So if you're pressing along, you should have your heat press at 290 degrees. If not, you can watch this back and follow the lead later. And then I'm going to position it down to apply. Now, one of the other common mistakes, and we'll get to it on a further slide, but I don't want to miss this opportunity, is placement. And so people really struggle on getting their design straight, placing it in the correct place. We have all types of guides available to you and resources for placement guides, sizing design guides that you can access through the STAHLS website and also through the other websites from the partners that are demonstrating here today. But I want to give you just some practical tips that I use. So what I would do on a design like this to make sure it's straight, I would take that design, I would take the graphic, especially when it's the clear carrier, and I'm looking for the edge of the graphic. And you can see I am folding, it's kind of washing out a little bit, so I'll pull it back. I'm folding the edge to edge. And so the design, I'm folding edge to edge, and then I'm just going to give myself a centering crease right on the PET carrier. So I'm just pinching this, it won't damage the transfer, and it gives me a centering crease at the top of the design, right? And so now when I go to load that on, you see I have a little centering crease, and I don't have to guess where's the center of my design. Is this straight? You guys got a great view on how I look down my heat press. The collar is dead over center, and if you follow a straight line back, it's directly to the center of the back steel brackets on this machine. On the Fusion machine, there's a post there. Like, find some visual place on the press where you can look back at center. Yes, you can invest in laser alignment tools. If you want to go that far, you can shoot a centering line laser down onto the machine. There are handy little jigs available to you, or you can create your own jig that's 16 inches wide with a little notch mark to find the center in an easier way. All these are tools, but once you get going and you become an expert, even as an expert, I still do this. I pinch the center, and then I have to stand in front of the machine, to line it up. And so I position my design, and then I'll make sure that's 2 to 3 inches down from the top collar. And all of my measurements always come from the top edge of the press, because I know that's where my collar is going to be every time, because I'm draping it off the press, I'm loading it upside down, and again, I'm placing my graphic on the widest opening of the heat press. So I'm not reaching way back in the machine, especially if you have a clamshell style like I'm using here. So position your design, and I do a very simple thing where I take my two hands, they're always with you, right? And I measure on both sides to make sure that design is lined up. Just a very quick place on both sides to make sure the edges of that design are lined up, just as a double check. And then you're just going to lock the heat press down for the application. Now, it's tough to see, the machine's counting down, but there is a digital pressure readout on the back of the machine, and that little red light is an indicator. It travels from 0 to 9 on the machine. And so in this particular case, it was reading a 7, which is a nice medium to firm pressure. On that 0 to 9 scale, 1 to 3 is light, 4 to 6 is medium, 7 to 9 is firm pressure. Ultracolor Max applies at a medium pressure. So technically I could apply that anywhere to 4 or 6. I had it on a 7. It works slightly over the pressure too, but then I don't have to guess, does this feel like a light? Does this feel like a medium? Does this feel like a heavy? So when you apply products like that, you should have consistency from application to application. There are no seams up there. There's no variance in what I'm doing. The machine measures everything for me, and I can have confidence that my first shirt is going to match shirt number 50. So getting your item flat is absolutely critical to success. Okay, so t-shirts are easy.
Okay, so that was a little bit of a sneak preview as to what everybody at the Global Masterclass experienced and saw. It was a really, really great event, and we will definitely be doing more like it. So if you do want to be the first to know about future events, make sure you sign up to our newsletter. If you just go to stahls.co.uk and scroll to the bottom, there's a sign up button there.
And many of these videos will become available in the coming months, those that could not attend. So if you didn't attend and you'd like to see the videos, make sure you do subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you've got those notifications on. That way you'll be the first to know and see some of the amazing videos. Our masterclass bundles still available for another week. So some of the heat press bundles that are available are on stahls.co.uk. Just look under bundles, search for masterclass bundles, and you'll be able to find these exclusive bundles that will be available only for a short amount of time. So make sure you get them while you can.
We've had Darren comment to say that it was an awesome event. I'm going to be watching replays of what I missed because I was on duty. That's the beauty. If you signed up beforehand, you've got them all to watch on demand. And Melanie said it was an amazing event, so informative. Thank you, Melanie. We're glad you enjoyed it. We are announcing another in-person event at the Innovation Centre, which we're going to be talking a lot more about later on today. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. Should we talk about what it is?
Well, we can give it exclusive to the people that are with us today, I think.
Yeah. So we are hosting a heat printing on athleisure event. So it's going to be, what did we decide on the name in the end? The Athleisure Printing Expo. Yeah. And that is going to be happening on the 21st of November. And we're partnering up with TriDry for that. So it's super excited about this event. You're the first people to know. Like I said, we're going to be posting a lot more about it later on today. So keep your eyes peeled on that. This will be a free event to attend. You just have to sign up on the website. And then, we'll be in person here at the Innovation Centre for, I believe we're doing 2 separate timings. So whichever one suits you better.
Yeah. So again, it'll be very hands-on, lots of practical knowledge, but also a real insight into the industry. And so if you're not doing athleisure, it's a great opportunity to come and learn and find a bit more about the industry and see if it's the right fit for you. And if you are doing athleisure, we're going to do some real great lessons on troubleshooting and getting the best out of these types of garments as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this event. It's going to be a good one. We've had another comment from Mark saying, brilliant event. I watched all of it. Thank you so much. Very impressed that you watched all of it and you stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning with us. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. The only other thing I wanted to mention while we were on the live today is that we do have a lot of new YouTube videos coming out over the next couple of weeks. So as Andy said, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss any of those. Lots of different topics, and we've got, I think there's one on heat print on demand, we've got one on vinyl coming out, there's some more in the athleisure series, so keep an eye out for that. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about today.
So. Yeah, thank you again to everyone who joined us for the masterclass. For those who joined you today, always great to be in your company.
And we will see you very soon with another live video.
Yeah.